you ready for this? It's showtime. Lights, fans, action. Oh yeah, we've got action. Faster, tougher, more ferocious. There's nothing like League. This is the Betfred Super League.
Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped me ear off. What do you think?
It's a milestone edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast this week. Would you believe that this is our 150th edition since we first started this venture? Thank you to everyone who's stuck with us from day one, particularly Rugby League's major sponsors, Betfred, who have offered us fantastic support. So, 150 not out, and I thought a special edition needs special treatment, which is why I'm here in Leeds today to talk to one of the most influential and most experienced men in the game, who's been involved for over 50 years as a player, coach, owner, and latterly as the chief executive of Leeds Rhinos, turning them into one of the most successful clubs in the Super League era. I'm referring, of course, to Gary Hetherington, who leaves the Rhinos at the end of this year. But far from retiring, he now takes on one of his biggest challenges as he plans to revitalise the London Broncos. Gary, first of all, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. First question to you is an obvious one. Why, when no one would blame you for putting your feet up, you're taking this on?
Well, it's a challenge. It's a fascinating challenge and in many ways an ultimate challenge as well. Rugby league is pretty strong in the north of England, but you can almost throw a blanket over all the clubs. However, London have been in operation since 1980 in actual fact, but to make the rugby league successful in London and indeed the south of England is a challenge, and it's one that I'm really excited about and one that I'm going to throw myself into. And if we can be successful, then we can have a materially positive benefit for the game in so many different ways. In player production, I think there's a lot of players in London and the south who could become really good rugby league players, could play for London, could play for other teams in the north, could ultimately play for the national teams as well. I'm talking to both male and female players as well. In terms of attracting more big sponsors and more big brands to the sport, once again, I think London holds the key to that. In terms of generating more people watching the game on television, more awareness of the game, more interest in the game, once again, London and the south of England is a critical area. And hosting major events. We already host the Rugby League Challenge Cup final at Wembley, which is a terrific occasion, and so many Northerners come along to that game. I want many more people from the south to attend that game as well. Hosting major internationals. We've got the England versus Australia first test match at Wembley in October. That's a marvellous opportunity for people in this locality, London and the south, to be able to come along and cheer for the Aussies if indeed they're an Australian, or especially cheer for England. So I just think there's so many opportunities and advantages of rugby league. Rugby league's a terrific game. It's probably the only sport that was born out of its community, that's still very much a part of its community. So I think rugby league can actually make a real positive difference in any community that it's involved in. I think the game itself brings so many opportunities to a new area and a new territory, and I want to help to spread the word and spread the gospel of rugby league in London and the south.
Well, it's just over a month now, I think, since you unveiled your plan and your thoughts as owner and chief and executive chairman of the London Broncos. How is all that progressing now?
Progressing pretty well. So I will step down as Chief Executive at Leeds Rhinos at the end of the season, having had a 29-year term, which is a pretty good innings in itself. And I'll throw myself into the London project. And that's to try and create a successful team and a successful club, a team that the people of London and the south of England can be proud of. That's a team that can win, a team that can be successful, a team with role model players who are known throughout the region. But we also want to actually engage with all the other rugby league activity throughout London and the south. I'm led to believe there are 26 community clubs which all need to be engaged with. Anybody who plays rugby league is involved in rugby league teams. We want to engage with and make them feel part of the London Broncos, and that's players of all abilities. That's disability rugby league, it's wheelchair rugby league, it's men's rugby league, it's women's rugby league, it's schoolboy rugby league as well. So we want to be able to engage with all the sort of rugby league. We want to get more people interested in watching the game. We want to ultimately attract sellout crowds and make our home matches a really special occasion to be at. That's pre-match entertainment, and the game itself. You can't have much control over the game itself, but we know that rugby league is a pretty good sport to watch. And so the experience of coming along to a home game will be a really good experience for a very wide-ranging sector of supporters. We want corporate supporters, we want corporate hospitality, and the home venue at Wimbledon Football Club offers excellent facilities for fans, excellent facilities for people who want to have hospitality and sponsors. So we want to take advantage of all that and bring a very diverse audience in. We want people at the high end who actually want to see their brand promoted extensively throughout rugby league territory, throughout London and the south. But equally, we want to be able to attract families from communities in and around London, probably families who can't afford to pay to watch sport, live sport. It may be that all the Premiership clubs are pretty full up, rugby union, cricket, etc. We want to make rugby league, it is an affordable sport and it'll continue to be affordable, so we want to make it available to as many people as possible who want to come along. Even expats, there's 100,000 Australians living in and around London. There's loads of Kiwis, there's people from Tonga, people from Fiji, people from Papua New Guinea, all live in and around London. These are rugby-loving nations. We want them to come along and be part and parcel of the movement, the rugby league movement that our club will ultimately become. So there's so many opportunities. There's plenty of work to be done, of course. What London has at present is a very loyal, a small but a very loyal and dedicated fan base. People who travel to games from all over the region. Might take them two or 3 hours to actually get to a game, and 2 or 3 hours to get back as well. So it's got a terrific and loyal and dedicated fan base. It's got a squad and a backroom staff who are all totally committed to rugby league in London and the south. It's got some advantages, but we aim to transform it into a very successful club and a very successful business and a very successful operation.
The vision sounds absolutely fantastic, but I know for a fact that running the London Broncos can be an expensive business. David Hughes, the previous owner, it cost him a small fortune. Have you got the finance in place yet to turn your dream into reality?
No, is the answer. We are looking to pull an ownership group together, an ownership group of people who can support the vision and make a difference. That may be with sponsorship, it may be with having a particular ability, it may be connectivity. So anything that can actually make a difference. So we're looking at bringing an ownership group together of significant people and organisations as well. And you mentioned David Hughes, and I've known David for over 30 years, and he's the reason why London has been able to be preserved, his money and his finance. And David's a terrific, passionate supporter of rugby league and a great benefactor of London Broncos as well. So David sort of stepped out, and in many ways I've stepped into his shoes. But I think my approach is a very different one. I don't have a magic wand, and I don't have a big stash of money either. So in that regard, I'll play to my own strengths, which is to encourage as many people as possible to come on board and to be part and parcel of our operation, and to share in the decision making, share in the forward momentum of the club, and so my role in many ways will be effectively to steer the ship and to collate all the rugby league interest that there is in London and the South, generate more rugby league interest as well, and bring this all together so that everybody feels welcomed at the club, everybody feels part of the club, everybody, even from being a fan, feels as though they're making a contribution in whatever small way that may be towards the ultimate dream and the ultimate vision of the club and its success.
You've mentioned the Australian, the overseas population down in London. I remember when the Broncos, virtually when they first started, there was the Australian connection with the Maranta family, wasn't there, down there? And it was one of their most successful periods, to be fair. Is this the first step, do you think? Because we hear all the time that the NRL want to be involved. Is this the first baby step to getting the NRL interest in the Super League?
I don't know is the honest answer, but I've met and spoke with Peter V'landers, who's the chairman of the NRL, and Andrew Abdo, who's the chief executive, and they've done a terrific job with the NRL and with the game of rugby league in Australia and New Zealand. The game's absolutely flying out there in terms of ratings, attendances, profitability. They've done a terrific job. Of course, the Las Vegas project, they're now taking the game to the USA, which is something we've often talked about, but it's never been done. The NRL are leading the charge. We are supportive of that. We're going to be playing games each year in Las Vegas. So they're very open. And I think one of the criticism of the Australians over the years is that they can and have been quite insular. They've looked at their own operation, looked at their own game and said, well, we're okay. And yes, they were okay. But of course, they weren't sort of taking advantage of the opportunities that the game presents. We've got a terrific product in Rugby League. At international level, it's an outstanding product, but international Rugby League doesn't generate any income for either the NRL or the Super League. It could and should do, but it needs a coordinated approach to it. It needs a strategic plan, and that's now going to become reality. So the NRL can see that that if we can improve and increase the standard of our competition in England and France, that will have overriding benefits for the game in Australasia as well. They now recognise that, and they recognise that they need to actually be supportive of what we're trying to do. And whilst there's no formal offer on the table, they have publicly gone out to say that they are keen to be supportive in one way or the other, and discussions are already up and running with that. London, well, everybody in Australia knows all about London. Mm-hmm. It's one of the world's capital cities, and so there is quite a bit of interest from Australia in London and its ultimate success. So my discussions with people in Australia have been very productive. They are really keen to see the sport be developed in this part of the world, in this part of our country, and we in London Broncos could well have some Australian influence in there in terms of investment, sponsorship, etc. Because I think London, more so than any other club in our competition, can have something of an Antipodean flavour to it. It can have an Australian flavour to it. It can have leading players from Australia as part and parcel of it. It can appeal to the 100,000 Australians who live in London. And it could have a New Zealand flavour to it as well. It could appeal to all the Kiwis and all the Pacific Nation Islanders as well. This is a rugby-loving nation, whether it be rugby league or rugby union, and there's so many of them living in and around London and the South. We want to attract them to our games to become regular fans. We want to attract companies from abroad, big brands, big names, to actually come and be part of the rugby league family. And I think we can do that, and ultimately attract companies who can ultimately go on and become major sponsors of the game as well. Because I think we've got so much to offer, not only at the elite sporting end, but at community level as well. And all companies now have got a responsibility to support community engagement, and no other sport does it as well as rugby league. And I know here in Leeds, the work of the Leeds Rhinos Foundation and what the impact that operation has on both rugby league development, but also on health, on education, on so many services that it provides, and that's all through effectively being part and parcel of the Leeds Rhinos Rugby League Club. Now I want to do the same in London. London have already got a foundation. It's run by Rick Jones, who's a terrific chairman of it. That can be developed and provide a terrific service for so many different communities in and around London. So we need relationships with local authorities, and the Merton Council are a terrific partner to have on board. They can see the value of rugby league development in their region. Merton Council overlaps Wimbledon, and so it's got a locality presence to it as well. There are 32 local authorities in London, so we'd like to have a relationship with each and every one of them.
With every one of them, all
Absolutely.
32. I mean, the vision, Gary, no one could talk it down. It's fantastic, and your enthusiasm, no one can deny that as well. You have said that you believe that London could be in Super League in 2026. Given where the club is right now, wrong end of the championship table, relegated last year, they're closer now to a drop to League One than they are to getting back into Super League. So how on earth could that happen? Does IMG hold the key to this?
No, IMG are an advisor. And they came up with a grading system that determines promotion and relegation. And I'm a big supporter of the grading system. I don't think it's entirely altogether right at this stage, but effectively that's an external audit of each and every professional club and awarding points for the quality of the club's infrastructure. Success on the field counts, but only marginally, and also its potential, its catchment area and so on. Now, each club is graded over 20 points. If a club achieves 15 points and it gets a Grade A licence, that's an entry into the Super League and immune from any possibility of relegation. So that's the target for London, to get 15 points. It currently, at the end of 2024, received 12.65 points, nearly 13 points. So even with its then operational setup, which is very sparse, it achieved 13, and it's got potential for a lot more. Some clubs in the game at present have no more potential. They can't actually get any more points. They've probably got as many as they're going to get. But London have got significant potential. So by making rapid improvements, we can actually become a Grade A Super League club in a fairly short space of time.
Well, I tell you what, it's an enormous challenge. You've got your hands full, there's no doubt about that. But, we all, I'm sure, wish you the very best of luck. We do need a strong London to help this game progress. I must say, you're involved with Leeds Tykes. You are going to be the Rugby Union Club's first president as well. You're going to be very, very busy. I know retirement is off the agenda for you. Jamie Jones-Buchanan's taking over from you here at the Rhinos. You signed him for the club, didn't you? You must have great pleasure in that.
15 years of age, yeah. And he was just a young aspiring player who was delighted to be given an opportunity. And of course he took the opportunity with both hands, went on to play 400 odd games, played in all the major finals and played for England and Great Britain, and was an inspirational player and a great servant. And Jamie come on board at the end of his playing career, and we created a position for him to become the manager of our culture and diversity operation, and he's now been promoted to the board of directors as a director of the club, and of course he'll be succeeding me as its chief executive, which I'm delighted about. Fantastic
rise for him. His career CV is almost as good as yours, Gary. Now, look, good luck with London. Let's talk about Gary Hetherington, the man, because it began for you over 50 years ago, didn't it, involved with this game? 1973, I think, you signed for Wakefield. You actually played here at Leeds, but it was Sheffield Eagles where the fun really began. You founded the club. You got them in. On your way home, you found out you hadn't got a ground because Sheffield United had pulled out. They denied you permission. And there is a famous story that you actually, once upon a time, remortgaged your house to keep the club going. You must look back on those days with a great sense of pride because it became a success.
Yeah, Sheffield was a remarkable journey, and it actually all began for me in Castleford, which is where I was born and brought up. And I became a Castleford fan, and I was indoctrinated by rugby league from an early age. My uncle Tom used to take me to the games. I used to go and do 2 or 3 hours gardening for him on a Saturday afternoon, and then he'd take me to the game, and often we'd go in at half time. I didn't realise till later in life there were 2 halves to a game, because I used to get in for 3 at half time. But I was fascinated by the game, not only the game itself, but the players, the teams, the clubs. I used to love to go to away grounds, and this was from an early age. And I made a conscious decision that I want to be a rugby player, because in growing up in Castleford in the 1960s, if you weren't academic, and I wasn't academic, then you were destined for a life underground, working in the pits. And that's where my dad worked. My dad became a manager of one of the local pits very close to the Castleford Rugby League ground, Welldale. And on a Sunday, when the pit wasn't working, occasionally he'd go in and he'd take me with him, and I went down the shaft. And I just couldn't believe that people could spend their life working underground.
You must have thought, that's not for me.
Absolutely. And I realised then, I'm going to have to get good at something. And in many ways, becoming a professional rugby league player, albeit a part-time player, as it was in them days, was a form of escapism in some ways. So I made a conscious decision, I'm going to be a rugby league player, and I'm going to play for Castleford as well, because that was my beloved team that I was a supporter of. Of course, that wasn't to be quite... I was to become a player, but it was with Wakefield Trinity, and I was signed by the son-in-law of my future wife, Gary Cooper, who at the time was coaching Wakefield Trinity along with Neil Fox, and Gary was a sort of legendary player. He played he toured with the British Lions in 1962. He was the man of the match in a grand final. He played in the water splash final. And he persuaded me to go to Wakefield. And I signed for Wakefield whilst I was still at school. Nobody knew, it was a secret. And I played for the first team whilst I was still at school under an assumed name. Because at that time you weren't meant to play professional rugby league if you were still a schoolboy. So that were my early beginnings, really. And then when he then later moved to York and became the coach at York, and I got transferred from Wakefield to York. I had about three or 4 years at York, and I enjoyed playing at the old Wigington Road, Clarence Street Stadium. It was from York that I got bought by Leeds. Sid Irons was the coach at Leeds at the time, and that was in 1978, just after Leeds had won the Cup for the second year. So I had 2 or 3 years here at Leeds, moved on to Huddersfield. And even though I played about 300 first-team games with a variety of different clubs, I had in many ways an unfulfilled rugby playing career, because I was always striving for something different. I didn't quite know what I was looking for, and that's the reason I moved to so many clubs. I used to fall out with the chairman. I used to fall out with the coach, because I was sure there was a better way of coaching. I was sure there was a better way of running the club than what I'd witnessed. So I used to fall out with clubs. I've often said, to this day, I would never have a player like me in the club.
I was going to ask you that. If you'd have come to you and said, I want to sign, would you sign yourself?
I wouldn't know. I must have been a nuisance. I must have been a pest. And to be honest, I don't think I actually knew what I was striving for. But what I do know now, I was looking for a club where everybody's sort of pulling in the right direction, knows where it's going, where it's striving to go, what the role is, what your role is, and what your contribution is, and so on. And I never quite found that throughout my playing days. So in my late 20s, I wanted to coach. I wanted to coach when I was 19. And I applied for the job at York, the club I played for. And I got to the last 2, and I got interviewed by the old board, who were previously, I'd been there as a player. And I drove home that night and got home, and my wife says, Kelsey says, how have you gone on? Do you think you'll get the job? And I said, no. I said, I won't get the job. They won't offer me the job, and even if they do, I wouldn't take it, because I'm trying to explain to them that I think I can help them build a future and build a club. If I'd have said to them, I think I can help you win the next 3 games, I'd have had a better chance of getting the job. But I said, look, we need to start our own club. We need to start our own club.
Is that where it came from?
Absolutely. It came on that night when I got home to my home in Pontefract. I said, we need to start our own club. London had started in 1980, so this would be about 1982.
You weren't even 30 then?
I was 28.
Yeah,
I was 28, yeah. And soon afterwards, I thought that Sheffield was the right place to go. It's a big sporting city. It was quite close to the rugby league heartland. ease of getting players, ease of getting visiting supporters, etc. But of course, I'd never heard of due diligence or market research, or, you know. And so all I'd got really was enthusiasm and no money, because the company that was going to actually be part of us, who came on board with us, was Telvista, a television company whose owner was a bloke called Barry Whitford, who could see the potential of pay TV, and he'd got a television company. His company covered all the 1982 Australian tourist matches over here, and he'd heard about them well. And they were going to be the financial arm of the club. Of course, we were going to start at Sheffield United, and they pulled out at the last minute, and therefore the Sheffield City Council came in and said, "Look, we're keen for you to start a club in here." And I said, "Well, it's got to be a partnership. You, the council, have got to support grassroots development. You've got to provide us with a venue, and I'll get a club up and running." So we started in 1984. Unfortunately, Telvista had run out of money, and therefore the financial capital investment of Sheffield Eagles was £13,000, which was the money that my wife Kath had earned as a double glazing saleswoman for Everest. And she was their best female salesperson.
Fantastic.
And she earned a good living out of that. And that was the money that actually that created Sheffield Eagles. And there was never any more money invested into the club, but there was so much goodwill and so many people who got on board who did a terrific job. I was the player, I was the owner effectively, along with my wife. She was the real owner, and I became the coach as well. So I coached at Sheffield Eagles for 10 years.
Did you paint the lines on the pitch as well?
No, I didn't. I used to get somebody to do that. I was very good at getting volunteers to do that. To do that. And of course, we played for the first 5 years at Ollerton, and we got promoted after 5 years, despite all the odds, really. Having got promoted, that's when the disaster at Hillsborough happened, and therefore our stadium got closed down. So our first year in the we didn't call it Super League then, but the top division, we had to play over all different venues. We played at Hillsborough, we played at Bramall Lane, we played at Featherstone, we played at Wakefield, we played at Chesterfield, Rotherham, we played at all different venues. And quite incredibly, we stayed up. There were 4 teams got relegated, but we managed to stay in the Dave. And of course, we built a successful team and a successful club. We gradually built the support base. We built a really good commercial operation, and to such an extent that we became profitable. But you know, we were washing our face at a time when most other clubs were losing money. And you know, I had 12 great years at Sheffield. It was a remarkable journey. We got to the Yorkshire Cup final. We played in the top division. We beat all the top teams in the top division. And clubs used to get embarrassed by being beaten by Sheffield Eagles because we'd got far less money than everybody else.
Everything that you're saying here, I'm thinking London Broncos 2026. Well, but you know, let's not go there. I know you stayed at Sheffield until 1996 when you came here to the Rhinos. So you weren't in charge on the greatest day of Sheffield Eagles history. But I was at Wembley that night. You were at Wembley.
I was.
And I know you were really, really emotional when Mark Aston lifted that trophy.
So a year later, Sheffield went to Wembley and won the Challenge Cup with pretty much the players.
With your team?
Well, you know, Mark Aston and Paul Broadbent and, you know, the players that we'd all brought to the club, and they're a good side. And I was one of the few that predicted that they might win. I'd predicted that they'd beat Castleford in the 3rd round, which they did. And I did an article for the Yorkshire Evening Post before the Challenge Cup final saying, hey, these are not rank outsiders. These have got a chance of winning. Now, of course, I didn't go on so far to say they will win because they were playing a great side in Wigan. But for me, they've always got a chance. And, of course, you know, they proved to be victorious on the day and won the Challenge Cup. And it's a fairy story, really.
It is a fairy story.
But they had a good team and a good club and a good organisation. And, of course, I'd left to take over Leeds, which was, in many ways, at the opposite end of the scale. You know, they're a team that just narrowly avoided getting relegated in 1996. They'd got a business with a £5.5 million overdraft. They were going to lose another £500,000 going forward. It was quite an horrendous situation. And I was looking at the club, and at the same time, unbeknownst to me, but Paul Caddick was being approached as well. And it was Alf Davis, the then chief executive, who actually contacted me and said, would I mind speaking with Paul? He says, you might know him because you're both from Castleford. And me and Kath went to see Paul. We talked and he said, can you make it work? And I said, yeah, but we'll need £1 million. to turn it round, and we'll need 3 years. And from there on, I'll make sure that it washes its face.
You did more than that. I mean,
we did more than that.
This was almost the birth of the golden generation. This was the era of everything. You won everything.
It was an ultimate challenge, but Headingley and Leeds Rugby League have got so much history and tradition, but in many ways that counts for nothing in sporting circles. But I remember saying publicly, we'd got 4 key objectives. One was to ultimately give the city a team it could be proud of, a team with players that, ideally local players who were great role models. Secondly, we had to find a way of becoming a sustainable business. We can't be losing money every year. We need to become a profitable business that can reinvest its surplus profits back into the organisation. Thirdly, and this was in many ways the biggest problem, how can we redevelop Headingley Stadium? It was falling down, both the cricket side and the rugby side. So that was, in many ways, the biggest challenge, because that was going to be a very expensive thing to do. But we've got to find a way of doing it. And fourthly, we need to connect with the community. That means that we've got to go out to the community, to schools, to clubs, etc. And we've got to invite everybody into Headingley for Headingley to be used 365 days a year by the people of Leeds and surrounding areas.
Yeah. Well, you've done that in spades. I mean, look at your record. 8 grand finals, 3 Challenge Cups, 3 World Club Challenge titles, Leeds Rugby Limited formed, a world-class stadium here, both sides of Headingley, cricket and the Rugby League. Kath, president of the game in 1995, you, president 2004. You're leaving a hell of a legacy behind you. There's no doubt about that at all. Your best memory?
I often get asked that question. It's an hard one, is that? There've been so many. I think, winning the Challenge Cup at Wembley in 1999 was very special. It took 21 years for Leeds to win it.
And 1 year after the Eagles.
I know, yes, absolutely, yeah.
In
1998, in 1998, Sheffield Eagles won the Challenge Cup, and Leeds went to the first ever grand final. Played with them. They got beat by Wigan in the grand final, and then a year later we won the Challenge Cup final. I think winning the Super League grand final in 2004 was very special. Winning the World Club Challenge when we beat Canterbury at the packed out Elland Road, Sonny Bill Williams and all. That was a very special. Even more special for me was beating Manly in the World Club Challenge here at Headingley. What better way to win a World Club than here on your home ground?
That was 2015, wasn't it?
2015, yeah. There's so many people contributed. Darryl Powell did a great job as coach and of course as player. Tony Smith did a great job. Brian McClellan came and did a great job. Brian McDermott had 9 years in charge as the head coach, did a terrific job. So there's so many people made a major contribution, not least the players themselves, of course. And we did have a golden generation of players, people like, Kevin Sinfield and Jamie Peacock, Rob Burrow, Danny Maguire, Ryan Hall, Keith Senior. We got a real strong collection of players that we put together, and a lot of players come through the system as well. So we gave opportunity to young players who all thrived and were very proud to be Leeds Rhinos players. So a very special time, and that period lasted for 15 or 16 years. It's difficult to recreate it, and I think St Helens are finding that same sort of
course they are.
Situation now. But I think Leeds is a big club. It's a big organisation. It's a very diverse organisation. In addition to be promoting rugby league, we've got a conference and banqueting business. We've got a hotel. We've got a big retail operation. We're a very diverse business. So as chief exec, you've got to be overseeing all of that, of course. But primarily, the fans want to see a successful team.
They do.
And for the most part, we've had a pretty successful team.
Haven't you just? What's your worst memory?
I don't know. Actually, obviously, getting beat in significant games is a huge disappointment. But for me, winning trophies and winning is icing on the cake. And it's the same with losing as well. What gives me most satisfaction is watching, for example, young players develop and become mature and into good players. Watching how our staff tackle a problem and ultimately come up with a solution. Watching how much enjoyment our fans get out of how much they experience. It's those little things that give me the most satisfaction.
I'm sure. Look, we've been praying for 130 years that somebody from the great game would get a knighthood. We all were annoyed the fact that Rob Burrow didn't get one before he so sadly passed away. We're even more annoyed that Kevin Sinfield hasn't got a knighthood right now. But at long last, arise Billy Boston.
Absolutely.
How good is that?
Absolutely, and you're quite right. Nobody from rugby league's ever been knighted, and that's a damning indictment, I think, on the system. And which of the system is a terrific system. I think people should be recognised and rewarded accordingly. For Billy, such a terrific character and such a legend in the game. Halcyon days at Wigan, but Great Britain as well. And he was a very special talent, a very special talent. Neil Fox could have been there.
Yes,
It's another one. Nobody will ever get as many points as Neil Fox. And there's so many players that serve this game with great distinction. So I think it's so honourable and privileged for everybody connected with rugby league, whether they be a fan, a sponsor, a player, that somebody's finally got knighted, and it could be no better individual than Sir Billy Boston.
Sir William John Boston. Isn't it fantastic to
it
say
is.
that? Oh, it really is. Gary, anyone listening to this can hear your enthusiasm, your passion for this game, which hasn't varied over half a century. I think you're going to succeed in London, I really do.
I hope you're right, Eddie.
I hope we are as well. And it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege talking to you, and more power to your elbow. Go and get it done for us, will you?
Thank you. I'll try my best.
It might be Sir Gary Hetherington in the near future.
I don't know about that.
You never know. If you succeed in London, listen, you can succeed anywhere. And thank you for all the time you spent with me today. So a really special edition to mark our 150th show. Back to normal next week when Stevo and I will chew the cud over the great game of rugby league. Until then, thank you again to Gary, and thanks to all of you out there for sticking with us. Here's to the next 150.